Every market has a battlefield. For centuries it was ships and caravans, men with ledgers riding across muddy roads and oceans, trading grain and timber and tea. Prices moved at the speed of wind and hoof. Then, in a single generation, the battlefield moved to a wire. Fortunes began to rise and fall at the speed of a tick, printed on narrow paper strips that strangers would crowd around, argue over, even fight to control. We remember booms and crashes. We forget the street fights over who controlled the tape. This is the story of when information stopped being a rumor and became power. This is the markets and machines historian, where money, power, and history collide, and nothing is ever as simple as it looks. We like to tell ourselves that markets reward insight. In practice, markets reward latency. The first to see wins. The rest pay. And when a new machine turned whispers into printed truth, the world discovered something unsettling. Price wasn't just a number, it was a weapon. If you follow the wire from its rattling birth to its glowing screens and microwave towers, you see the same pattern repeat. A new channel promises fairness. A gatekeeper rents out speed, a crowd arrives believing in transparency. Stress hits, truth gets late, and the crowd turns on the channel. To understand why milliseconds now cost millions, we need to go back to the beginning, when the tape was born and the fights began. The telegraph shrank continents, but it was a restless clerk in lower Manhattan, Edward Callahan, who shrank Wall Street. In 1867, he rigged a clockwork mouth to the telegraph's clicks and created the stock ticker, a metal throat spitting out symbols and last prices on an endless ribbon of paper. Edison refined the guts, Western Union scaled the network, and suddenly a broker in Buffalo could see what a broker on Broad Street had just seen. Almost. Almost is where the money hides. The exchange sold access. Western Union rented machines. Operators prioritized the big accounts. If your ticker was attached to the right wire with the right contract, your quotes arrived seconds earlier than the shop down the street. Seconds were the difference between a fill and a miss, a profit and a lesson. The tape did not democratize finance. It stratified it with exquisite precision. Think about what that means. For the first time, the medium decided the market. Not the harvest, not the cargoes sliding off a gangplank, not the weather. The wire. Wherever a medium becomes a choke point, a monopoly appears with a smile and a price list. The exchange governed the auction. The telegraph company governed the pipe. The two together governed the seconds, and the seconds governed the outcomes. The public pressed against glass windows, watching clerks tear the ribbon and pin it up. A late print could turn a quiet street into a shouting match. It didn't take long for a black market and time to appear. Enter the bucket shop, the working man's Wall Street. No membership, no seat, no leather chair, just a storefront, a chalkboard, and a purloined or delayed feed of the tape. You didn't buy stock, you bet on price direction. The house took the other side. If the tape ticked your way and the clerk paid honestly, you walked out with cash. If not, the house did. To the exchanges, this was heresy. To the public, it looked like access. A line of apprentices and clerks and barbers could finally wager on the same prices the suits were chasing downtown. But the feed was often delayed, the quotes imperfect, and the disputes immediate. The fights turned physical. Exchange detectives raided rooms. Western Union cut lines. Operators slithered wires through basements and across rooftops. Tape boys sprinted with fresh strips like couriers in a petty war. Crowds packed the doorways and argued with clerks when a chalkboard price disagreed with a whispered update. A single late symbol could set off a flurry of shouts, claims, and slammed fists. These weren't revolutions. They were the original stock tape riots, small, local explosions over who got to see a number first. Legislatures outlawed bucket shops. Courts blessed the exchange's right to control its quotations. Outlawing demand never erases it. It only raises the price. Information had a street value now. The market didn't just trade stocks, it traded time. There is a quiet revolution behind every great financial upheaval, the legal ruling that makes it possible. In the early 1900s, exchanges and news syndicates began arguing in earnest that price updates were their property, products they created and could restrict or license. Courts agreed. A number on a strip of paper became intellectual property. The moment itself, captured, packaged, sold. You didn't just pay for a seat, you paid for the seconds the seat gave you. Once the law blessed the seconds, the arms race began. The ticker had glamour, but it had a flaw. It could choke. In 1907, credit seized up and trust evaporated. Orders flooded the exchange faster than clerks could stamp them. The tape lagged minutes, then more, behind reality. Crowds gathered outside brokerages, faces lit by gas lamps and panic, yelling for updates that were already ghosts. The street didn't riot because prices were falling. The street rioted because truth was late. When the channel that is supposed to civilize speculation stutters, it reveals speculation's animal heart. Rumor outruns reality. Gossip becomes price. Men make decisions in a fog and call it courage. A decade and change later, in October 1929, the tape ran hours behind, printing the past while the present collapsed. People weren't just watching wealth vanish, They were watching it vanish in slow motion, unable to know where they stood. Brokers rationed updates, telephones melted. In the absence of fresh prints, fear priced everything. Markets don't merely hate uncertainty. They manufacture it when the channel clogs. That's the day a crowd stops acting like investors and starts acting like a mob. The tape was supposed to be the drumbeat, regular and pacifying. When the drumbeat stumbled, the crowd filled the silence with dread. Paper could not keep up. During the Wall Street paperwork crisis of the 1960s, clerks drowned in confirmations and certificates. Firms closed early, not because capital was scarce, but because capacity was. The tape shed its body and became light. Cathode ray tubes replaced the clatter of machines. NASDAQ went electronic. Consolidated feeds stitched competing venues into one screen. The strip of paper turned into pixels. Did that democratize the game? A little. The storefront crowds disappeared. But the hierarchy survived the makeover. Private lines became leased circuits. Leased circuits became co-located servers. Every upgrade promised fairness. Every upgrade sold speed. The vocabulary softened. We called customers data subscribers. We called the auction a market center. We called the fee a connectivity charge. The politics didn't soften. The tape still had a fast lane. If you rented the right pipe, you saw the tick first. If you bought the right box, you acted before your neighbor. We traded theater, the noise and the crowds, for silence and racks of fans pushing cold air through servers humming in strange towns. The war over seconds moved behind a locked door. Then the line went taut again. Fiber optics carved straight trenches across hills and farms to shave milliseconds between Chicago and New Jersey. When glass hit its limit, firms turned to air, microwave towers leaping farm to farm, line of sight across the Rust Belt like modern semaphore. Where the curvature of the earth flirted with the laser, fresh towers sprouted. The closer your machine to the matching engine, the earlier your eyes on the tick. This wasn't greed. It was physics. Light in glass crawls compared to light in air. Nanoseconds carry dollars the way caravans once carried spices. Regulators tried to slow the arms race with speed bumps, batch auctions, and rules that nudged quotes into daylight. Markets split themselves into lit and dark, displayed and non-displayed, all in the name of liquidity. The old truth returned wearing new shoes. The first to see wins. Everyone else becomes the liquidity they feed on. If the 19th century tape boys fought over a storefront wire, the 21st century tape lords fought over line of sight. Different hardware. Same war. The machine that turned rumors into printed truth did not end the rumor. It priced it. It taught a generation that the channel is the market. Control the pipe and you control the seconds. Control the seconds and you nudge the price. Nudge the price and you own the story. Then something strange happened. The feed went social. Retail apps put streaming quotes and candy-colored charts in a palm. Forums turned price into narrative. Screenshots replaced ticker tape. A generation trained on latency in games turned that awareness toward markets. In January 2021, an army of small traders reading the same charts and memes didn't just observe the tape, they forced it to print higher. For a moment, the old hierarchy blinked. If everyone can see the same seconds at once, maybe the advantage dies? Not quite. Zero commission wasn't free. It rerouted payment into the plumbing. Instant quotes weren't equal. They were curated. The real tape was still under the floorboards. Order flow sold and internalized queues and matching engines, where microseconds mattered more than slogans. But the crowd learned an old lesson with new tools. When people synchronize attention, they can bend the strip. Coordination is a kind of speed. Attention is a kind of capital. For a brief window, a story can outrun a spreadsheet. And when the platforms throttled or changed the rules mid-frenzy, the riots returned, this time in the language of app outages, congressional hearings, and the cold math of collateral. The fight over who sees and who trades first moved from bucket shops to browsers, from backrooms to public policy. Strip away the costume changes, and the anatomy of a stock tape riot is stable. A new channel appears. Telegraph, ticker, screen, fiber, microwave, app. Access stratifies. Early seats pay for speed. Latecomers pay for fills. Control hardens into policy. Property rights and quotes, fees for feeds, rules that look neutral but price the seconds. Stress hits. Orders pile up. The channel chokes. Truth gets late. Crowds react. In the 1890s, they packed bucket shops. In 1907 and 1929, they jammed brokerage lobbies. In the 2010s, they crashed servers and subpoenaed CEOs. Different theaters, same riot. The Market S social contract is simple, even if the plumbing is a T. Prices must be timely, fairly seen, and reasonably reachable. Break any two, and the public stops playing investor and starts acting like a crowd. The riot is the bill for latency. This is the uncomfortable secret of modern finance. We don't price assets. We price information about assets. A stock is a bundle of uncertain cash flows, but the number you see is a bundle of messages about what the last trade meant, what the next one might be, and how fast you can react. Because we price information, we fight over the pipes. The tape did not merely report the market, it created it by deciding who saw what, when. That decision travels from a court case a century ago to the server room today. Law sanctified the second, technology sold it. Finance turned it into a fee schedule. So what do you do if you still believe in fair? Start with a hard truth. You're never first, and that's fine. If your strategy requires beating a machine at milliseconds, you don't have a strategy. You're a speed tax donor. Design around your place in the queue. The tape decides now. Cash flows decide later. If you can stay solvent through the noise, invest on horizons where latency matters less than logic. That's not romance, it's arithmetic. Second, learn the plumbing. Where do quotes come from? Who pays whom for what? Follow the fee schedule and you'll find the strategy. Democracy at the screen level can hide aristocracy in the routers. Third, expect the choke. In panic, truth gets late. Have rules you write in calm that you obey in chaos. When the tape is behind, you are trading ghosts. Fourth, beware free. If you aren't paying for the feed, you're the feature of the feed. The old bucket shops printed on chalkboards. The new ones print on dashboards, and they wear better fonts. Finally, remember what the tape really is. A political artifact disguised as a technical service. The seconds are not natural law, they are policy. The impulse to control the channel never goes away because the channel is where power lives. When a venue sells a faster feed, it is selling a place in line. When a regulator draws a rule about display or queue priority, it is drawing a line on who eats first. When a platform throttles trading in a panic, it is choosing which promises to honor under pressure. You can be generous and call it risk management. You can be cynical and call it a velvet riot. Both are true. The system survives by asking its communication layer to carry not just data, but legitimacy. Sometimes it succeeds. Sometimes the wire sings. Sometimes the wire snaps. What comes after fiber and microwaves? Lasers through clean air. Low Earth orbit relays you rent by the microsecond. Prediction itself, machine learning that guesses the next print before it exists and gets paid when reality agrees. Exchanges and selling queue position like luxury boxes. Decentralized rails promising fairness while quietly recreating old hierarchies in smart contract code, because the first node to validate is just another way of saying the first to see wins. And when the next stress test arrives, war, hack, a software war meeting an order book, the same drama will play out. A channel built for efficiency will be asked to carry legitimacy. If it fails, the crowd won't storm the trading floor. They'll storm the trust itself. That's the unadvertised lesson of those narrow paper strips littering the floors of old brokerages. The tape didn't just report price, it disciplined behavior. It told you where you stood exactly when it wanted to, and not a moment sooner. It rewarded those who leased the seconds and punished those who merely believed in fairness. It turned the mundane act of seeing into the decisive act of making. And whenever the seconds got expensive enough, people fought. Not because they hated markets, because they wanted a fair fight and discovered they were paying to enter the ring late. There's a darker twist that we keep ignoring. The tape civilizes speculation only as long as we all agree to be civilized. When the prints lag and the fear rises, rumor becomes a form of liquidity. It fills the gap between what we know and what we need to know. During the old panics, men bought and sold on mutters and smoke. During new panics, we buy and sell on screenshots and push alerts that carry the same uncertainty, only with better saturation. Technology didn't cure the animal spirits. It taught them new choreography. If that sounds bleak, it isn't. It's a call to realism. Power rents itself out. It never forgets to charge. Recognize the price, pay it when it earns its keep, and refuse it when it doesn't. Understand that a fair market isn't a natural habitat. It's a cultivated garden that requires rules that mean something when it's raining. Ask how your broker sees the tape, how your venue prioritizes orders, how your data arrives, and how stale it is by the time it kisses your screen. If those answers make you uncomfortable, good. Discomfort is a map. History doesn't offer a conspiracy, it offers a policy. The policy says that when a new information channel appears, a gatekeeper will capture the rent on speed, a law will bless the capture, a crisis will prove the system's limits, a crowd will riot against the limits, and then we will build a slightly better channel, hide the rents in finer print, and repeat. The miracle isn't that we keep fighting. The miracle is that the machine still works most days, price is clear, capital flows. Risk moves from those who want less of it to those who hunger for more. The seconds get bought and sold, and most of the time nobody bleeds for them. But when stress climbs, when truth gets late, the fight over the second surfaces and reminds us what we are actually trading. Every era paints its riot differently. In the age of chalkboards, it looked like a brawl in a smoky room over a disputed quote. In the age of gas lamps, it looked like crowds jamming streets waiting for a tape that could not keep up. In the age of servers, it looks like a chart that froze just as you needed it, an app that told you to try again, a congressional hearing where everyone swears their hands were tied. Mechanically different, morally identical. The riot is always about the same thing. Who gets to see the truth in time to act on it? The stock tape riots are not a quaint historical footnote. They are the prologue to every debate we keep having about market access, payment for order flow, co-location, dark pools, cross-venue fragmentation, speed bumps, gamified apps, and the next, shinier promise. They whisper a rule that should be stamped above every server room and courtroom that touches a quote. If you sell the seconds too dearly, the crowd will bill you later with interest, because the crowd remembers in its bones what the law sometimes forgets. Finance is not just numbers. It is a covenant about time. Politicians talk about transparency. Platforms talk about access. But the market's deepest truth is simpler. Information is power, and power rents itself out. You can fight it with rhetoric, or you can survive it with structure. Slow down where you can. Speed up where it's worth paying. Refuse the game where you're guaranteed to be the snack. And never forget what the tape really measures. Not just price, priority. Every market has a battlefield. Once it was ships and caravans, then it became a wire. Today it's a beam through air, and an algorithm that guesses before you do. The costumes change. The seconds do not. The next time a feed hiccups and an app blinks and you feel that hot edge of panic where your hands want to act faster than your head, remember the streets outside those old brokerages when the tape fell behind, faces upturned, breath held, waiting for truth to arrive. Then remember this. No machine can guarantee fairness. Only rules can, and only if we demand they survive the rain. If this gave you a new perspective, hit subscribe. History has the answers. I'll show you where to look.